We wanted to talk a little bit today about how to shorten that enterprise sales cycle, but also how to use security controls in order to close more deals and close deals quicker. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Amir Targat, who is the CEO and co-founder of Agency. He is a third-time founder, engineer, and an active angel investor. He is also an advisor to Purdue University's Crack Institute of Tech Diplomacy. He has over 10 years of experience building technology and selling technology products in highly regulated spaces in both the enterprise and growing startup spaces. So warm welcome, and give us a round of applause for Amir, everyone.
Thanks so much. Well, thank you, Riz.
Yeah.
I want to give a little bit of context as to why I want to tell everybody about this and kind of where it started. This is the first time I'm actually talking about this publicly, and it's kind of a working idea. So if anybody has any feedback or has ideas, please share them with me. But the context for this is that Agency is a cybersecurity company that our primary product is focused on selling to large enterprises. We protect individuals in their private lives on behalf of large organizations. So we have customers that include government entities, large publicly traded companies, media companies, and we serve customers around the world. But while we were in Y Combinator over 2 years ago, my co-founder and I, who both have a background in cybersecurity and engineering, but primarily identify as salespeople, both of us, saw that companies in our batch were struggling with meeting the needs of selling to enterprises and other businesses. And this went well beyond like getting a framework or not. It was like, how do we do this? And we created a program called Agency for Startups. It is what I would say is the leading cybersecurity benefits program for startups. There's over $10,000 in free services that we've collected from other companies, including CrowdStrike, where early stage startups can get CrowdStrike licenses, which are hard to buy even if you're a medium-sized company, as well as free pen tests, trust pages, and more importantly, advice from my co-founder and I as they've grown their businesses. And it's through that program that we've helped over 150 early stage startups from YC, Techstars, across the board. And through that, I've seen companies grow from 2 or 3 people to 60 people. One of the companies that we're helping with actually announced their Series A today. So it's been really amazing seeing their journey from kind of starting with security and then moving into selling to large companies. And there's some insights that I've taken away from this, and I think it's a complete shift between like what the successful companies are doing and what the ones that kind of have it wrong. So I saw this tweet about a month ago, and I thought it was amazing, and it kind of summed up this idea that I've seen in the last 2 years, which is that hype can make the first sale, but you need trust to make the rest of them. And kind of trust is all of these things. It's security, it's compliance, it's marketing, it's sales process. It's all of it coming together. And so when you think about trust and you think about products, Dropbox may be a company that you don't think of as a security product, but this is their homepage. The first line in their hero is securely share this stuff. And if you think about the history of Dropbox, when Dropbox came out, what was the hesitancy of large companies to use it? Well, it's not that there wasn't servers that you couldn't put files on. It's the idea of giving your files to somebody else is quite dangerous. And so Dropbox in its DNA is all of this security stuff. They even tell you right here, security is our highest priority. And they have to do that to gain trust, to get people to put their files on their servers instead of your own. Here's another company you might not think of as a security company, Amplitude. It's an analytics company, and they're telling you exactly what they're doing is actually giving you access to this stuff while not compromising security. This is another example that I really like, Retool. So This is built for the enterprise scale. Retool is designed for teams with security mindsets. Now, what's interesting about this to me is you think about some of these features that are on their homepage. These are not features for regular users. These are features designed to specifically speak to security teams. Self-hosting versus running in the cloud, custom SSO. Who cares about custom SSO? Security teams designing dynamic permissions on the fly. Who cares about audit logs? People who have to deal with compliance. So they're actually speaking to a very specific audience right on their homepage and building security right into their product. Ironclad is another one. If you've never heard of them, they do like contract signing software. They're talking about all of the security they have built in. What's interesting here and noteworthy is that they've got on their list of all the certifications they have as HIPAA, and it's like, this company isn't a healthcare organization. This company doesn't deal with medical data. They're not an admitted party under HIPAA. But why do they do that? Because they want their clients, who might be healthcare organizations or under that, to know that, hey, we have the same standards as you, not because they have to. And it goes beyond the frameworks that they have. They're even members of the Cloud Security Alliance. This is an organization that's for like cloud providers, and they just join it just to show, again, the security posture they have. Last example here, Modern Treasury. It's kind of hard to read. Our customers entrust us with sensitive data, and we take that seriously. They're telling you this is what they're worried about. So what I want to tell you is that security is now part of the buying process, and it goes beyond kind of just meeting requirements. And what I've seen firsthand over hundreds of companies and the ones that have been successful is that the best startups at the earliest stages don't think about cybersecurity as merely a defensive measure. The best startups use cybersecurity and compliance to position their products to have a competitive advantage. And I'm going to give you some examples of that. So I have kind of 3 tips that I've seen across the board. So the first one is positioning your products to meet your client's security goals. And my favorite example of this is we had a client, I'm not going to reveal who it is, but they came to us, they had a SOC 2, they were trying to sell to larger organizations, and they kind of fell in this trap where their SOC 2 didn't meet the needs of a very large organization that they got. It was a Fortune 100 company. That Fortune 100 company had been a victim of a major data breach, and their product had nothing to do with security. It was, for hypothetical speaking, it's a survey tool. And what this company asked them to do was build DLP, data loss prevention, into their product. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically tools to make sure that information can't be exfiltrated. So a user would be using their survey tool, and they could use it to stuff email addresses or social security numbers and take it out of the organization and catch it somewhere else. So that client asked them to build this in to their product. We helped them build it in, and they got that deal. But what they did that was so important was that they basically turned their product into, we're the only tool with built-in DLP. So that can be replicated across every area of security. If you're the only survey tool, or you're the only contract signing tool that has, let's say, DLP in it, or insert any other security area to it, you can position your product as a competitive advantage to other ones. The second thing that I've seen is that companies that are really utilizing trust change who owns security during the sales process. So there's a couple of ways this happens. The first is that they build security into the discovery process. So instead of waiting for the client to say, hey, we have security requirements for you, they ask right at the beginning, what security frameworks or audits do you guys have? So that they can prepare their demos to show how they meet those requirements. They make it clear in their marketing, in their sales decks, that security is a top priority to them. That doesn't cost any money. That doesn't cost, getting an audited framework. It's just a matter of marketing, just making it clear. Using security in their competitive comparisons. I mean, how many people know how much cyber insurance their competitor has? How many people have looked at the SOC 2 reports of their competitors to know what exceptions they asked for. So that information is really compelling if you're lining up comparisons to your competitors. And finally, the best companies pull security reviews instead of having it pushed onto them. So instead of waiting for a company to say, hey, we're going to make you do these questionnaires, they say, please give them to us because they want to be the vendor that's already passed security screening versus waiting for that to be at the end. I will say there are two common pitfalls I see related to this. First is that for early stage companies, security is often used as an excuse to say no. So it's not like a real, it's really a brush off. It's a, hey, we're busy, hey, not now, budget next year. And one of the easy ones to tell people is, hey, you don't meet our security requirements. Well, you haven't even asked me what I have or what I'm doing. So that's a common one early stage founders have. And then the other one is early stage SOC 2 fails. So first time founders doing a SOC 2, they do the absolute minimum. They try to get it in like 2 weeks. And unfortunately, they have this expectation that if once they have their SOC 2 or insert any other framework, I don't want to pick on SOC 2, but basically they get that audit done and they think that no one's going to ask me security questionnaires anymore, or that a real company isn't going to review that, or that if you choose not to do endpoint security or you choose not to do a pen test, that companies are going to want to do business with you. The last one, the last tip I have and thing that I've seen is that companies leverage security for retention. So if you know your client's audit plans and frameworks, you can highlight your security posture and what your product does as part of your renewal strategy. So here's an example. If often one of the most common competitors in a renewal process is DIYing things. So think about file sharing or contract signing. If you're Dropbox and a company is thinking about not using Dropbox, I'm going to use my own homegrown file server or whatever, why should I pay money? It costs nothing to put stuff in S3 buckets. Well, you lose all of that compliance and security features that you are relying on in your audit. So reminding customers of that. Same thing with contract signing software. You can accept signatures without any extra software, but why do people use DocuSign? Why do people use those tools? Because of that contract. And finally, if you can show that to them, it'll help. If you can show that your product helps them to continue to meet that posture, it's a great way to get retention. So that is it for the insights that I have. Again, this is something that I've been thinking about for 2 years, but starting to formalize. Riz and I started talking about this recently because Riz has worked on some really large deals at pretty large enterprises, and we started talking about one. It was a $40 million, I'll let you share it. You guys got the deal done, but a smaller company put higher security compliance.
Pretty massive deal at a large company that I worked for. We got buy-in from the relevant stakeholders in about 2.5 months. We went through the discovery process, talked to the various stakeholders that were involved, made sure our product fit was correct for this particular client. So everyone agreed, we were all ready to sign. 2.5 months, had all the buy-in we needed, and then the red lines started. And those red lines took an extra 6 months, and it was painful because the whole time I was just worried about, are my competitors going to come in? Are they going to swoop away? Are they going to figure out how to take this client away from me? And in the meantime, I had to also start running weekly discussions with the customer to get them onboarded and just keep them on the hook. So, the acid reflux was acting up, the stress levels were through the roof. Any enterprise seller knows the feeling. So no, this is definitely timely and useful information that you've shared with us today. So, so appreciate you putting this together. We'll open up the floor for some questions. We also have some questions from the chat as well that we can refer to as well.
Yeah. Sounds great. Thanks, everybody.
How do you differentiate between a no as an excuse and a real no?
That's a great question. Oh.
The question is, how do you differentiate a no for real versus it being an excuse to not purchase?
Yeah, I think it depends on who's telling you no, right? So like large companies buy software from very small startups who don't have all the security in place all the time. It happens, like I see it firsthand. It's usually when companies start getting security. It depends who's telling you it, right? If you're talking to a person who's your end user type, target customer, like they're a manager or whatever, or an engineer, like they don't know if you meet the security requirement. So if they're the ones telling you, it's a brush off. Part of doing that is not like the way to prevent that is from saying that you're doing security, actually. Like to do this stuff first, to say that you take security seriously, to think about this a little bit, so they don't have an opportunity to say that, because what you want to say when they say that is, hey, we're doing everything. We have great security. Give us your security questionnaire. Let us talk to your security team. It's very different when a security team is involved, because the way that they approach it is less about like excluding people. It's more about like they'll come to you and say, hey, you meet these things, but these other things you're going to have to do. And oftentimes, when they've decided they want to work with you, they give you time to get that stuff. But that's the thing that prolongs sales cycles. And so, like, you don't want to, let's say they say, go buy cyber insurance. You don't want to have like 2 months to go, it might take 2 months to get $5 million in cyber insurance. And you don't want your deal to get delayed because of that. So I would say if it's coming early in the sales process, it's probably a brush off. And it happens a lot. Like, it's very common.
So is it different when you think about that, the signal of a strong security posture versus the reality of it, and where that comes in?
I think the signal comes from kind of who you're selling to. Like, if you're selling a product to the enterprise and your target buyers are like, top, executives, engineering, CTO, that sort of thing, like, they're going to pass off standardized information gathering processes to their security teams. They just don't want to work with companies that don't have trust. Like, they don't want to be the guy who bought something from a small startup who isn't meeting security requirements, and then they're going to have a breach. You know what I mean? So I would say having security up front is definitely a signal.
The question was, is there a difference between actually having strong cybersecurity versus signaling that you have strong cybersecurity?
You're gonna get like vetted for that. The signaling just gets you in the door. Yeah. Cool.
We have a couple similar questions from the chat. What are some common mistakes that lengthen sales cycles? What are some deals you walk away from, or what are deals you walk away from, and what can we learn from these deals?
I mean, I've never walked away from a deal because of security requirements. I mean, honestly, I think we kind of had a milestone in our company. We walked away from our first deal like a week ago with a large enterprise, just because we understood that some of the things they were asking for are just not worth the time to put into it. But yeah, I mean, I don't think security requirements should be a reason. I mean, I've never experienced a company asking for stuff that's like unreasonable to sell to that industry. If you're interested in selling to the government or interested in selling to aviation companies that are contracted with NASA, they've got a different set of requirements. And if you want to sell to other companies like that, you're going to have to do what they ask.
Yeah, and I would add to that, deals you walk away from, or some common mistakes that lengthen deal cycles. Something that comes to mind is not having that compelling reason to act, that compelling reason to buy. Who in the audience has a car that they drive on a regular basis? Okay, one person. So no one else has a car. No. So no. This is what I'm saying. No one else has a car, right? If I showed you a really nice car, even if it had brilliant features, it's a brand new Mercedes, it's got a V8 engine, it doesn't matter how much I try to sell it to you, there's no compelling reason. You live in New York City, you don't have a car, you don't want a car. It doesn't matter if I take you out to dinner, put up a presentation. If it comes with free parking, that can be a perk, yeah. But having that compelling reason, that thing that occurs that's going to make someone want to buy something is super important. And I think as salespeople, we get super excited when anyone will talk to us. And so we'll naturally want to continue the conversation, but qualifying and making sure there's actually a reason for someone to talk to us to buy something, that's a reason to continue a conversation or cut it off early.
When it comes to security, what's the thoughtfulness on ordering? Because obviously we see. Yeah, sure. Oh, goody. This is dangerous. What's the thoughtfulness on ordering? Because obviously, as an early stage company, you're trying to balance the cash burn with the requirements you have to meet to get through the sales cycle. And we see the SOC 1 and we see the SOC 2. And so what's the thoughtfulness on ordering? Like, what needs to be done when versus what can I actually push off when I have the cash availability?
So that's a really good question, and it's a really hard question. And the answer is that it's very customized, and it's actually part of the reason why we created this startups program where we're giving away these resources, because I see it happen the wrong way a lot. I mean, I talked to a company earlier this year that didn't have a product out yet, but had a completed SOC 2 audit. It just doesn't make any sense, because that audit is going to have nothing to do with the product that's about to be finished in the next few months. And so it's almost like this signaling, it's the bad kind of signaling that like super early stage companies are, why are you getting this? Because, our customers told us we need it. Which customer told you need it? It's like, no, they just heard that other companies have them and they go out and get them. So I think there's a little bit of thoughtfulness that has to happen. You really need to grow into it. I mean, I was an advisor to a health tech company that had no audited frameworks by outsiders until they had over $600 million in revenue and were in business for 8 years. And then they went and got high trust because one customer asked for it. And you can do that. You can go, they were doing all the security, they just didn't have external audits. So it's possible to do that. It's possible to push that off as long as possible. When a company wants it from you, they usually give you time to get it, and they'll demand that. But I think people have to think more about building their products in a privacy-centric way. I mean, the number of companies I talk to on a weekly basis that their development instances have access to production data, right? Like that's an easy fix. Like, shouldn't be happening, doesn't cost money. Every security questionnaire is going to ask you about your cloud infrastructure and sort of thing. But it depends. We meet companies that are 10 people or less, and they absolutely need 3 audited frameworks to get any customers. There are customers like that. There are companies like that. But yeah, it's highly specific to who you're trying to sell to.
One more question from the chat. Let's see. What's this, you, Jared? Why does Web3 need agency if blockchain exists for KYC?
We don't do KYC, but I don't know. I don't know any companies that are using blockchain for KYC yet, and not sure if they ever will. But yeah, we do have a lot of companies that are in the Web3 space. Interestingly, they do need a lot of security. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, unless you want to answer the last question, which is what is the capital of Zimbabwe?
I don't know. Do you know?
It's Harare, of course I know. You have to know that if you want to be in enterprise sales. But with that, we'll close it off. So thank you so much, Amir, for joining us today. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today.